Hello everybody. I made this video in advance as my regular Saturday morning video. As you're watching this, I will be at the Misha Festival in Castlebar. And I must say I'm very proud to be a part of something that it will be making history as I'm speaking right now. I really do believe that something supernatural has happened. Well, we know what it is. That has sort of made a situation where the original festival that was cancelled by a tiny number of people, and which has now caused mayhem. Well, they've caused mayhem in the actual village of Drumshambo, has gone ahead inside the Ivy Tower Hotel in Castlebar, in a very nice town in County Mayo. And so I'll be there talking about basically the lessons of mythology from particularly an Irish context, but I'll be avoiding politics. So I will put that in this video, okay? So something happened in 2016 in Ireland. The centenary of the 1916 uprising, which was led by Patrick Pearse, who was proclaimed himself the first president of the Irish Republic. And he was to die a week later at a firing squad. But he wrote the poem Misha Era, and which inspires the festival name. Now, what Misha Era means is that Ireland belongs to the native Irish people, and by that, the ones who have been here, basically that came here from Europe. But not only them, like people who've lived here, like say people like Phil Lynott and stuff like that, who've lived here and from here, had Irish ancestry and raised in Ireland, who feels as Irish as anything. That's Misha Era. This is our land. We've nowhere else to go. This is the only place we have left. And don't talk to me about the diaspora and the Irish around the world. That's not to say I'm discounting them, but we have a country, and this is our country. And in 2016, on the centenary celebrations of the 1916 Rising, a ritual or a kind of a strange transformation took place when Sinn Féin, the Sinn Féin party, marched in front of the GPO in Dublin, where the actual rising had begun, and the proclamation of the Irish Republic had been read, and they were nothing but a sea of Palestinian flags. That was the signal given that Sinn Féin would be handing over Ireland to the Muslim Brotherhood. This was a very deliberate and real statement that they were saying that the future of Ireland is Islamic Caliphate, and Sinn Féin party, along with the other left-wing parties such as the Social Democrats and especially People Before Profit, their agenda will be to make Irish into a Muslim caliphate. And the reason for this is quite simply a way for them to stay in power. Left-wing parties have always failed in Irish elections. They've never really had any great support, mainly because Irish people kind of see through socialism for what it is. And so they're thinking, they're invoking this concept that there is a kind of an interesting sort of like philosophical crossover between the Muslim world and socialism, communism. You remember a lot of the Palestinian groups that we know from the past, such as Black September, and the groups who murdered the Israeli athletes at the Olympic Village in Munich, they were all Marxists. And this is how they became attached to the IRA themselves being socialist as well. So the two became fused together. And they have kept they created this notion that somehow that the Palestinian struggle is the same as the Irish struggle. No, the Irish struggle is the same as the Israeli struggle. And this is why Irish people were very fond of Israel until the IRA and the propaganda wing Sinn Féin worked on dismantling the Irish connection with Israel. Because why was this? Not because they loved Jews or they loved Jewish culture. Jews fought in the Irish independence movement, the most famous being Ben Briscoe, the Lord Mayor of Dublin. Many Jews in Jewish community in Dublin provided safe houses for the old IRA, and Michael Collins and people like that. And so when Israel was declaring its independence from the British in 1947, 48, they were very much inspired and learned a lot from the Irish thing in 1919 to 1922, because they were involved in that as well. The IRA and modern Sinn Féin, the provisional IRA, are unashamedly Marxist. The IRA don't exist anymore in any form. And so this is where this link with the Palestinian Marxist, it was seen the whole Che Guevara was also involved in that. It was seen as this international struggle against capitalism and an international war, a Marxist war, that was to take place in countries all over the world at the same time. A lot of it bankrolled by the Soviet Union, but a lot of it was also independent things that grew up locally as well. Now, so basically they saw Cuba as the model for all countries. And we all know what a hellhole Cuba is. So this was turned around in Ireland. So the agenda was to glue the Irish identity to the Hamas. Well, it wasn't Hamas, it had been Hezbollah before that Islamic Jihad, Intifada, the Intifada in general. Before that, as a sort of like a Marxist struggle that could be used in Ireland to eventually give power to the left-wing parties, such as Sinn Féin, that they can't attain at the polls, at the ballot box, from Irish people. So they have this idea: if they flood the country full of foreigners, predominantly Muslims, they'll turn Ireland into an Islamic caliphate, and then they'll finally get into power. Now we see this kind of thing reflected in all kinds of the left-wing movement. You see it in like a lot of the people who are just, the reason why the left attracts so many misfits is because a lot of them have failed in life, and they believe that, or they're desperately unhappy people, and they believe that if they can get that Marxist republic or Marxist state, that they're not losers anymore, they're not failures, they will win, they'll be on the winning team. So this is why they're going for broke now, because there's no real new generation coming up to follow Marxism or anything like that, or left-wing politics. It's very not in Ireland, not in Britain anymore. It doesn't exist. That doesn't mean they're all gone right-wing. It just means it doesn't exist. It's just it's an irrelevant thing. The left and right thing has very much disappeared, and we're working for something else now. It's almost like a new kind of identitarianism has sprung up. So you have a situation now where Sinn Féin symbolically and very literally handed Ireland over to the Muslim Brotherhood and said that the destiny of the Irish people is to become Islamic. That's what Sinn Féin's primary agenda is. This is why the Sinn Féin councillors were against the Misha Era Festival in Drumshanbo, because they see it as, the old phrase from the American Deep South, the slaves in the plantation whispering in the woodshed. They don't want anyone whispering in the woodshed saying, I don't like these guys, are up to no good. And that's what they're saying. Sinn Féin don't want that. They're terrified of it. They're terrified of this becoming public knowledge too soon. They'll be okay about it when we have a much larger Muslim population in Ireland. But the Muslims are just being used as pawns at the end of the day. But right now, the Misha Era Festival and people like me and others, we've broken their cover too soon, and they're in a state of panic because they've been found out. Now, the rank and file of Sinn Féin, unfortunately, a lot of them are brainwashed. We saw that the other day with the second kneecap trial, and there was all these people out there were saying that, waving tricolours and saying this is about Gaza is like the 33rd county, basically. That's how they see it. And you have a horrifying situation now where so many Palestinian flags are flown around the country that many Irish children are now growing up thinking that the Palestinian flag is the flag of Ireland and not the tricolour. And this is deliberately done by Sinn Féin and leftists in this country. See, they're killing the Irish identity of the tricolour and our true heritage, and they're swapping it with the Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, Palestinian thing. And they're trying to raise a generation that thinks it's actually they're Muslim Palestinians and not Irish Europeans. Now, and this is the game. So they basically, all you have to do is look at Mary Lou MacDonald and the other females in the Sinn Féin upper echelon, or any rank of it, when they put on the burqa, they look like they have a look on their faces like they've been completed, like they're princesses going to the ball in a Balenciaga gown. This is like what they're like. They look on their faces nearly euphoric, almost orgasmic. And this is, just look at them. Now you have a situation where people were mentioning on the kneecap video about the Misha Era Festival, and they were saying things like, "Well, Ireland has changed now." This is what the Sinn Féiners were saying. Well, Ireland has changed now, and we live in a different time of a different struggle. And Pearse's words when he read the proclamation of the Irish Republic was really about the plight of the Gaza people. Now, they were saying this with a straight face. This is a cult. And you can see them all over the country walking around with the Hamas flags, or on the bridges over motorways waving them. They have the glazed over look in their eyes, like the planet people from Quatermass 4. They're completely devoted to this idea that Ireland must now become an Islamic republic, and or at least a caliphate, and the crescent must replace the Parp or the Shamrock or the St. Bridget's Cross as the national symbol, and because it's what they're fighting for. It's literally what they're all about, and the entire Sinn Féin rank and file is like this. It's disturbingly cult-like, and you expect the thing where you say to them, why is Sinn Féin obsessed with the Islamic struggle and Islam in the Middle East? And they won't say, that's not true at all, you're just reading into things. They'll turn around and say, oh, well, because this is the Irish struggle and we're one and the same. That you'll get that answer. This is how terrifying it is. And you will have, they don't want their Sinn Féin do not want Sinn Féin rank and file do not want their grandchildren speaking, Irish. They want them speaking Arabic. And this is all true the whole left in Ireland. Do you remember the water charges thing? There's a group called Unite the Unions, and they basically co-opted the water charges thing. And they had a speech on their members had a speech on the 1916 centenary outside the building where I think it was they built a stage outside the building where Patrick Pearse decided to surrender to the British when the fight was a very sad moment. And they always Unite the Union's Irish members standing on the stage. And the beautiful thing about the 1916 rebels is how diverse they were. They weren't diverse. They were Irish, some were English, some were Scottish, some were Jewish, but they were Irish. They were Catholics and Protestants, mostly Catholics, but not exclusively. But that was how diverse they were. They weren't made up of, the United Nations. They didn't have lesbians with purple hair on the front line. It wasn't anything like that. And Unite the Unions was specifically playing the same cards. I watched it that day going, there's something going on here. They're working for somebody else. And it later on dawned on me, oh, it's the Muslim Brotherhood. It can't be anybody else. And so you have Unite. This is why there was a thing. I saw some comments recently on an Irish union board, and union members were saying things like, why am I getting constant letters from the union membership telling me to support the Occupied Territories Bill? That's not why I'm a member of the union. I'm going to cancel my fees. So they're getting so desperate. They're crapping out by throwing the dice too soon on lots of issues. And the Misha Era Festival happening right now is a terrifying event for them, because the left in Ireland really don't want to be found out what they're up to. There have been certain events lately that really decloaked them. One of them was the sculpture that was put up in Drogheda in County Louth at the roundabout, where they took the star and crescent of the city, the city seal of Drogheda, which is a star above a crescent, and it represents a particular Irish family in the town. And the artist, with the permission of the local cultural Marxist, flipped it sideways to turn it into the star and the crescent of Islam. It was a deliberate tactic to transform the city of Drogheda from an Irish town into an Islamic one. Very subtly done, but they got caught on that one. That they didn't expect that. They're getting caught on lots of things now. And because this now unfortunately, this is why the likes of Christy Moore and Kneecap and the rest of them all jumped in and wanted to stop the festival and the Misha Era festival, because it would derail their champagne socialist agenda. You see, it won't matter to them, because if Ireland becomes Islamic and before it would become Islamic or during the stages, there would be horrific sectarian violence between native Irish and or Irish who've converted to Islam or whatever, and foreign Islam, Arabs, people in the Arab world, Pakistan, they'll be all safely sequestered in their, gated communities, not worrying about it, living it up with the other, the champagne socialists, or they'll suddenly just jump out of the country. And so this is how dark it is, and this is why I'm at that Misha Era event. That's why I'm there, because I discovered something in the centenary of 2016 that's very frightening to this country. And if you do not believe me, watch the news between 2016 in Ireland and today. We've had jihadist beheadings, jihadist attacks on school children. We have had editorials in the Irish Times by Muslim leaders saying that Irish men need to learn to treat their women better, capitalizing on the slaughter of Aisling Murphy, who was slaughtered by a Roma gypsy, and a welfare tourist, an immigrant. Not an immigrant, a welfare tourist. They don't come here to do anything other than collect money, and his whole family covered it up or helped them. Beautiful young Irish girls cut down. They were actually that was a real blow for the Irish establishment, because they were holding their fingers hoping the local Irish fella had done it. And when they found that there wasn't, they were like, well, let's attack her boyfriend for saying that, things that everyone else in the country is thinking. And you see, the whole situation is like this. So if you're a member of Sinn Féin, there's no hope for you. I know you're watching this video calling me all kinds of names, a Nazi and everything. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to people who are not brainwashed by the Sinn Féin, United Unions, Social Democrats, and especially people who are for profit. They're a complete cult as well. That don't have the glazed over look in their eyes, that don't have orgasms when they put on burqas, or raise their children to think the Palestinian flag is the flag of Ireland, and if it's not that, it's the pride flag. The tricolour is now, this is what Leo Varadkar said when we need a new flag for Ireland. He wasn't talking about anything other than that, the Palestinian flag, because he was the one who raised the flag during the 2016 event. This shameful character, if these people who get, these men and women who gave their lives to free this country, they're having their legacy now taken from them by Sinn Féin and the left in this country, and handed over to jihad. Now, my attitude is that we can stop this now by just talking about it and promoting real Irish culture. And anyone who's not Irish is more than welcome to join in with this. This is not, sectarian. It's not, doesn't mean everyone, no one's getting blood tests or anything like that. But that's what this is about. That we're to avoid a hell down the road is to try and raise the consciousness, the sleeping consciousness, or as James Joyce called it, the unborn consciousness of my people. And yeah. And, just think about it. You're probably going to hate my guts, but hopefully there's someone beside you watching this video who's gone, I am kind of uncomfortable about all these Palestinian flags everywhere. I am kind of uncomfortable about the RTE website showing nothing but Palestinian stories at the top of their feed, which, interestingly enough, if you go down to their most read stories, are not at the top of the feed. So there's no one. The Irish people are not obsessed with the Palestinian issue to the level. Now, I'm not saying we should support either side. I'm saying we just mind our own business. That's my thing. We just mind our own business. We don't have any place there. We don't have any place in Russia, Ukraine. We just don't mind our own business until they're approaching our borders, which neither one of them are, except one of them, the Islamic Brotherhood, is inside our borders, that we get concerned. Otherwise, it's none of our business. And this is why we need a revival of a Gaelic League type thing. not because of Irish chauvinism to say we're better than anyone else, not to proclaim that people of a certain, a specific race can only be Irish, I mean 100% their bloodline right back to Cuchulainn or whatever. It's not about that. It's about the cultural that has come through us through the Proto-Europeans, through the Indo-Europeans, through the Celtic world, through the early Christian worlds, through the Germanic Norse infusion, the Anglo-Saxon Saxons, Normans, English, Scottish, all together. They have created a specific culture that by the time we'd reached, say, the 1600s, we had a very specific Irish culture that is the culture that we are now with. It reaches peak in the late Middle Ages with this is when you look around Ireland, all the great castles are from that period, all the great Middle Age, the poetry is from that period. That began it. Then the British Empire kind of took control of the Irish consciousness. And then one day in the early 1800s, everyone in Ireland, some people like me, some gobshite like me back in the 1880s was looking around Irish towns and cities and saying, why is there Union Jacks everywhere? Why are Irish kids talking about the empire and the royal family as if it's part of us? And then they said, we're kind of losing our culture, aren't we? Why don't we revive the Irish culture? And you had the likes of Lady Gregory and Douglas Hyde and many others. They started the Gaelic League just for that reason, because there was a feeling that the Irish were losing their Irishness. And now here we are, 140 years later, it's happening again. People like me are walking around Irish towns and cities and saying, why is the Hamas flags everywhere? Why is there rainbow flags? Where's the Irish flags? Misha era.